Now let's talk to Bellator president Scott Coker. Wanted to get his take on the card. And, of course, Bellator 186 in less than 2 weeks as well, crowning their first women's flyweight champion, the return of Ryan Bader, et cetera, at Penn State. Let's welcome back our old friend, Scott Coker. Scott, how are you?
Doing great. How are you, Ariel?
I'm doing great as well. It's great to talk to you. It's been a minute. By the way, how nervous are we about the Warriors? Is this just a product of going to China and everything, or are we getting a little nervous about their slow start?
Yeah, don't worry. Last year, I went to the opening day, and they lost that game as well. So I think it's just, something that they're used to, and they'll bounce back. It's a long season, but I think that we have a really good shot to repeat this year.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think everyone does as well. Okay, so let me ask you about Mr. Mousasi. We spoke to him earlier. He was very fired up about the critics, about the fight, about his eye. What did you make of his performance in his debut?
I mean, Gegard came in, fought his butt off. I mean, to fight with an orbital fracture for 2 rounds, I mean, the guy's a warrior. A lot of people could have just quit. And at one point, I thought the doctor was going to step in and stop the fight. But he thought that Gegard could continue. But it just goes back to, we got great fighters in Bellator. And Shlemenko, after 59, 60 fights, the guy's a killer. And, he did what he had to do. And at the end of the day, it was a close fight. I think that Gegard won the first round. I think Shlemenko won the last round. It was the second round that was in question. And, the judges saw it Gegard's way.
So if he would have lost that fight after the doctor looks at him and says, no, we can't let him continue, would that have been a disaster for Bellator, considering how much you invested in him, how big this debut, the name that he is? How would you have described that if it would have ended up in a loss due to the doctor stoppage?
Yeah, I mean, listen, those things happen in fights, and we would just go on to the next event, and Gegard would come back, and I think this definitely rose Shlemenko's stock, win, lose, or draw. I mean, I think he had a great performance, and people see how great of a fighter he is. But is it devastating for the league? No, there's not one fighter that just says, hey, this is what Bellator is. It's not just built on one fighter; it's built on many fighters, and we have a lot of great fighters that can fight anybody in any league in our company. And Gegard is, I call him the prodigal son returns home, and I think he had a great performance. And he was in a tough fight with a tough guy, and I think people should give credit to Shlemenko.
Has some of these free agents that you've spent money on, that you've brought over from places like the UFC primarily, and they're maybe slow starts in Bellator, has that made you think twice at all on your strategy as far as free agency is concerned?
No, not at all. I think it's quite the contrary. I mean, when I was in Strikeforce, they always try to send the propaganda. UFC fighters are better than Strikeforce fighters. Well, I think Strikeforce proved that, and we can just leave that door shut because we had some of the best fighters in the world, and they proved it. And we already know all the names that we talked to in the past about
right.
that have had great careers, and I think that that's the same thing here. It's like, look, we got some of the best fighters in the world, and they can beat some of the best fighters in the world from any league. It doesn't matter. It's not about the name of a league. It's about the players, about the fighters, and that's how I feel.
So that's kind of a debate that we were having last week. In a way, when I don't know, a Patricky Pitbull beats a Benson Henderson or a Shlemenko, it almost proves that, okay, Bellator is here to stay. It's no cakewalk when you come over here. But I think we can't deny that Gegard Mousasi coming over and the amount of money that you're paying for him, it behooves the company that he is successful and that, he almost makes it worth the investment. Do you look at the fights that way? Like, okay, you don't maybe have to win, but you have to at least prove that it was worth going out there and paying you all this money to come over and fight for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, look, he's a great fighter, and does his stock go down if he lost? I don't know. It depends on the fight. I mean, it was a great fight, and they went back and forth, and like I said, it went down that second round. But as far as bringing over the best fighters that we can, that's still my job, and that's still going to continue. And if you're a free agent, I mean, give us a call, and we're going to continue to sign the fighters that are available that go to free agency. that's that. So it's my job to make sure that we continue the free agent pool and to grow our free agents. But at the end of the day, it's up to the fighters to fight, and it's something that they have to go in there and do their best. And if win, lose, or draw, look, we're in business with them. That's how I feel. We're in business with Gegard Mousasi for years. We're in business with Benson Henderson for years, with Ryan Bader for years. So it's not just going to be based around one fighter. And win, lose, or draw, that's just how it rolls out sometimes.
So to put a bow on Mousasi, is it fair to assume that his next fight will be for the middleweight title?
Well, I think that we had the fight in December and in Florence, and we're going to wait to see what happens there. If Gegard's healthy, I think he has to have surgery on his eye when he gets home.
Yeah.
So who knows how long he might be out for? 8 months to a year.
Okay.
So a lot will depend on his health, and also we don't know what's going to happen in Florence either. So let's wait to see what happens in Florence, and then get the doctor's report from Gegard maybe in 2 weeks after the swelling goes down, and then we can have a more current conversation about that belt.
And that title fight is Rafael Carvalho against Alessio Sakara that you're referring to in Florence. By the way, I saw that you were asked about this, and I'm wondering if your stance has changed at all since Friday. Will Bellator be moving to 5-round non-title fight main events? Do you think that that's the way to go after, the UFC has done it now for 4 or 5 years? Would you like to see that in your organization as well?
It's something that we've debated internally, and like I said at the press conference, it's like once you do it, you can't go back.
Yeah.
And so there's been some thought on both sides, but right now we are going to continue with the 3-round main events and 5-round title fights, but it's still being debated internally, and I think it'll be a matter just of when it happens, but I think eventually we'll head in that direction.
Do you have a stance? Like if there was a vote right now, what would you vote for? 5-round or 3-round main events?
I'm not opposed to 3 rounds, to be honest, because it's something that when you go in there and it's 3 rounds, you're going to fight you're going to fight your ass off for 3 rounds and go at it, and that there's like you can't pace yourself. It's going to be much quicker paced fight than a 5-round fight, but I have people debating me here, and so it makes a lot of sense, because if this fight was a 5-round fight, clearly, I think it would have went Shemenko's way.
Right.
So it's you're kind of in the middle here, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's being debated, that's for sure.
The general consensus online after the Heather Hardy fight was that it was a disaster, that you have a lot invested in her, that you've been pushing her, and here's this little known Christina Williams who's making her debut, and she completely, she breaks her face, her nose is busted, bleeding, all that stuff. How would you describe the fight, and more importantly, the outcome?
Like I said, it's our job to put the fights together, and then, it's up to the athletes to perform. And, Christina Williams, that was her pro debut, and here was this, young lady in the middle of this, big arena on national TV, and it looked like she had probably had 40 or 50 pro fights already in major stadiums. I mean, nothing rattled her. I was really surprised, and I was talking to Rich. I go, I think she's going to run out of gas. I think she's getting a little nervous, but she didn't. She just kept bringing it, and Heather did take a lot of damage, and I know Rich talked to her over the weekend, and she said, "I'm Irish. I'll be back. I'm not going to go out like this." So we are expecting her back, but we can only tee up the fights and make the fights happen. As far as a disaster, because you put so much time, energy, and marketing, and listen, it is what it is. I mean, we can't fight for the fighters as well, but we can only put the best fights that we can on, and whatever happens at that point, I feel that, look, as a promoter, we just let it unfold as it unfolds.
That's certainly the right kind of approach. Do you know what kind of injury? Like she broke her nose, right? That's fair to say. Do you know what kind of injury she's sustained?
Yes. Yeah, she has. I think the only thing structural was just her nose was broke, and she has some pretty black eyes, and it was. I saw her in the hallway or the lobby, when I was on my way up to bed, and I ran to her and I gave her a hug. I said, hang in there. How you feeling? And she's like, I'm fine. I'm fine. And she was looking to go get some rest, and she'll be out for a little bit, but I believe she will be back.
Okay, so you don't think that she's going to go off to boxing now?
Well, listen, Lou DiBella was there, and we had a great conversation. We sat down and talked for 30, 40 minutes about just the different possibilities of, with Heather, with his other fighters that he has in his stable. Some want to come to MMA. And, I think that, we'll do some business with Lou, with some of his other fighters as well. So, we have a good relationship with Lou. And, if he wasn't supportive of this, it definitely wouldn't have happened. And, Heather, if she wants to go box, then, then that's what it is. And we'll go let her box.
What other fighters are we talking about here?
Well, we didn't get into specifics, but he's got a couple girls that want to come over and test themselves in MMA, and I said, well, I encourage them to get into an MMA gym as well and do both, and learn to become a mixed martial artist and not just a boxer.
Sure.
And he said that he's going to give me a call this week. We're going to talk in further detail. But as far as working together, I mean, the door is wide open for Lou and I to do some fun stuff together.
Amanda Serrano, one of those names discussed?
We didn't mention any names, but I think he has a couple of other female boxers that he represents or he promotes that want to get into MMA.
Speaking of boxing, one of your brightest young stars, Michael Venom Page, made his boxing debut on Friday, and I was talking to someone in the organization saying, like, why would you let him do this? And the response that I got was, we let guys do things. If they want to do them and they clear with us, we don't have a problem with, standing in their way and guys going out there and testing waters elsewhere, as long as, they're part of the organization. But if they do well, it's good for the brand. Did you have any issues with this? Like this, if he gets brutally knocked out, I know he wasn't fighting the most experienced opponent, but it's still a new venture for him. Did you have any issues with MVP going out there and boxing while he's still under contract with you?
No, not at all. And I talked to Richard Schaefer about it. I talked to Bruce Pinkow about it because they were co-promoters with, I think, David Hay over there in the UK. And I said, look, as long as it doesn't interfere with his fight schedule with us, then we're fine with it. And so they put this fight together. Michael really wanted to do it. We talked about it, and I said, look, if it's important for you, then go ahead and do it. And go do it. Try boxing and see how it works out for you. And if you enjoyed it or not enjoyed it. But at the end of the day, he's continuing to train. Boxing is something that if he gets better, it's going to be better for him when he fights in the cage for us. He's just going to up his stock over there in the UK and keep building his brand there, and we had no problem with it.
I'm very sad, Scott, because earlier today, Michael said to me, he said he's kind of over the Paul Daley fight, and he's moved past it, and the only way he does the fight is if there's a stipulation that if he beats Paul, he gets into the entire purse, and he will also put the same stipulation on his contract. If he loses, he wants to give up his purse. He doesn't deserve any money. And I feel like that's not going to happen. So to me, I feel like the fight's not going to happen anymore. Is this possible? Could we possibly be seeing this fight just kind of go away? It has to happen, right? It's magical between these two English fighters. They don't like each other, exciting fighters. Are we really going to let this fight go away?
Come on, Ariel. We do the big fights.
Yes.
Come on. We're gonna make that happen. I mean, at the end of the day, that fight should happen. And winner take all is what he's proposing. I mean, to me, that's not. Maybe that's what we propose to Paul and say, hey, here's a winner take all scenario. Let's do it. Let's get it on.
I love this. I thought you would for sure poo-poo that idea, but you're into it.
No, listen. If they want to put it on the line, we're gonna pay somebody. We'll just pay the winner.
That's incredible. Okay.
Yeah,
so you're not over the fight.
No, I want to see that. Personally, I want to see that fight happen. I think that's a fight that needs to happen. And, I think that, Michael's probably over it because Paul's called him out twice and then reneged on the call out. Right.
Right.
So, I don't blame him. He's probably like, this guy's just nuts. And I want to get away from him. But for me, as a promoter and, as president of Bellator, that's a fight that needs to happen in Bellator. And I think that it'll be something that will, drive great attendance, great TV ratings, and I think the whole world will be watching when those two guys fight.
The next time Paul Daley and MVP step in a Bellator cage for a fight, will it be to fight each other? I feel like we're playing with fire here. Would they need to fight each other next?
To me, this is the first I've heard that that they want to just that MVP is willing to give his purse.
Yeah.
I'm going to get off the phone with you. I'm going to call Paul Daley and say, hey, he's willing to give up his purse. Step up. Let's do this.
Let's do it. Yes. When are you going back to London? I feel like we should do it in London.
Yeah, it has to happen in London. Yeah, that definitely has to happen in London. And the beauty about London and having Viacom ownership is that they own Channel 5, which is like the main station there, and the whole country will be watching there.
Okay.
And the whole world will be able to watch through all the distribution channels we have. But it'll be on Channel 5, and it'll be a big deal there and everywhere else. But we got to make it happen. That fight's got to happen. You know what? I'm going to huddle with my team after this thing, and we're gonna create a timeline here.
Oh, really? Okay, because you're actually talking about you're saying it, like present, like it is going to happen. It seems like you're very confident that it will happen, despite the fact that literally an hour ago MVP said he had moved on from it, that it wasn't going to happen.
Well, he moved on unless the money was,
sure,
on the line. So we're going to go put the money on the line. Let's go do this. This is like,
okay.
Let it ride. And come on, Paul, you could if you're that confident, you could take MVP's purse too.
This is great. Okay, we're getting things done here. So so we got that done. Now let's move on to the heavyweight division. What can you tell us about the heavyweight division? When are you going to crown a new champion?
Well, I think that we'll probably crown a new champion. I want to say first quarter of next year, and then we'll start, having a lot more fights in the heavyweight division. And we got some great heavyweights now. There's a lot of matchups that I can't wait to see. And I'm excited about 2018. I think 2018 is going to be a very busy year, a big growth year for Bellator, and the heavyweight division will be a big part of it.
Could you tell us about title fight contenders, something like that?
Well, I think you could kind of, put the names in the mix. I mean, I think of, Mitrione, who had the victory over Fedor. I think of, Roy Nelson. I think of, Chuck Congo. I think of, there's a lot of guys that I think even King Mo, who could he beat Crow Cop 2 years ago, and then he lost last year, but he's beaten Congo, and he wants to stay at heavyweight. So I think that's somebody that will stay in the heavyweight division in 2018.
One of the last great things that you did in Strikeforce was the Grand Prix. Any chance you bring that back?
You know what? I would like to crown the champion, and then we'll take it from there. But I think, listen, outside of the Pride tournaments in Japan, I think that the Strikeforce tournament was one of the greatest tournaments in the history of our sport. Yeah. And I had such a great time promoting that. And who was the first person I told?
Me.
You. That's right.
In a hotel room in St. Louis, December of 2010.
Yeah, that was an amazing tournament. Come on, that's when they had a young Alistair Overeem, and it was a young Fabricio Verdum, and Fedor, was in his prime. I mean, it was just great stuff, and we always like doing a lot of fun stuff like that. And
yes,
and who knows, but let's go crown the champion first, and then we'll go from there.
Is there any chance that you guys bring back Rampage Jackson?
I'm not sure. I mean, I'm understanding that he's with Zuffa now, and that he's fighting for the UFC. But I'm not sure about his his contract status. He
was on my show a couple of weeks ago, and he was kind of up in the air about where he would fight again. So I was wondering how you ended things off with him.
Yeah, I mean, we honored our agreement with him, and we, fought his fights out, and I'm not sure if he's a free agent or what, but maybe we should give them a call. But as of right now, I thought that he was already headed to UFC.
What could you tell us about Dylan Dennis? Is he ever going to fight for Bellator?
I think he will. I mean, I think that he's just training and trying to figure it all out, and I think it's just gonna be a matter of time because everything that I've heard is that he does want to fight MMA, but he's somebody that I did read about over the weekend. There's an article, and I just flashed up the headline. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I said, hey, we should reach out to that guy and see when he wants to come in and step in, because evidently he's got an amazing jiu-jitsu game.
Yes.
And hopefully he's working on his stand-up and his takedowns and all the other stuff, and it takes to become a great MMA fighter. Because he's going to need it when he steps into the cage, because it's not just about grappling.
Are you going to book Chandler versus Brent Pimmers too after what happened at MSG? Is that the next fight? And if so, when are they going to fight? Chandler was kind of complaining recently that he wanted to get back in there.
A fighter complaining? Come on, that never happens, Ariel. Jeez, come on, you know that. No, we're working on that. We're working on a couple things that we're not ready to announce, but hopefully soon.
Do you believe, Scott, that it's possible to have too much MMA? Between last weekend and the end of the year, there's 11 UFC events, only one weekend off, Christmas. There's 7 Bellator. So between the two of you, there's 18. And that's not to mention all the other ones, the PFLs and the ones. Is it possible to have too much MMA? Are you ever worried about oversaturating the market?
All I can say is this. It seems like a lot of fights, but you know what? Our ratings have been solid all year, and our ratings are going up, and our sponsors are extremely happy. The network's extremely happy, and the quantity of fights are really driven by the TV stations or the TV networks. So I'm thinking that all these networks are pretty happy. Otherwise, they wouldn't do that many. I can only speak to Bellator, and Spike loves having the fights, and probably wish we did more than 26 a year.
Oh, really? Wow. Okay. Speaking of which, I saw a commercial on Friday during your broadcast for the Paramount Network. So in 2018, Spike becomes the Paramount Network. How does that affect Bellator, if at all?
We're just going to be on the Paramount Network. It's just Spike turning into the Paramount Network, and I'll tell you, it's going to be a great time, because it's going to be rebranded. They're pouring a bunch of resources, a lot of money into the rebrand. They're going to pour a lot of money into original content, and the premium shows that they're going to create, and with big stars, are exciting, and we're going to be a part of that. And our budgets are going to go up. Fighter signing budgets are going to go up. Our free agent budgets are going to go up. And so we're excited, because I look at it like this. It's going to become like HBO or Showtime, in the sense that you have all these great shows. Then twice a month you'll have our Bellator MMA will be the sports block instead of HBO boxing or Showtime boxing.
Okay.
And that's really, I think, what you'll see. You'll see Homeland, Game of Thrones. Not to say on Paramount, but they'll have all this original programming that's going to be really premium, and Bellator is going to be the only sports content on the premium network.
Okay, so no cause for concern. This doesn't mean that they're completely rebranding and getting out of the MMA business.
Oh no!
Okay.
No, that's not going to happen. No, I mean, if you heard that, that's totally false. I mean,
no, I didn't hear that, but I was just curious. It's a totally different logo. It's a different feel. I didn't know what the direction was going to be.
Yes, I'm telling you, it's we're going to have more resources and more premium shows around us, and it's going to be great. It's going to be, to me, like I said, it's just going to be like HBO, running all these great shows, and then Saturday night, twice a month, here comes instead of HBO boxing or Showtime boxing on Showtime, it's going to be Bellator MMA.
Okay. We are itching closer to Bellator 200. Are you going to make that into a big deal? Bellator 100 wasn't really a big deal. What do you think about Bellator 200?
Boy, where was Bellator 100? I don't even remember. I wasn't around, I think, at the time.
Yeah. It was a nothing event. It wasn't even that big of a deal. I'll tell you where it was. It was at Grand Canyon University Arena on September 20th, 2013 in Phoenix, Arizona. I knew that off the top of my head, Scott. That's how much I love Bellator. That's how much I have invested in the brand.
That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear. Listen, you know what? I wasn't around for that fight, but I can tell you this: Bellator 200 will be a much bigger deal than the Grand Canyon Arena show.
What do you like? So you are planning on making this like a special thing?
Well, Well, it'll be one of our tentpole events. Obviously, we'll be in a bigger stadium. We'll put on some great fights, and it'll be a special night because when you hit that 200 mark, that's an accomplishment.
Yeah,
and really, it's a testament to Viacom and Spike and Kevin K's continued commitment to drive this sport, and because it's something that they love.
Yes, they have been there since 2006, so over 10 years now. Bellator 186 is a little less than 2 weeks away. It's the night before UFC 217, so it's on November 3rd. Would you prefer to not be on the same weekend as the UFC? Do you feel like it's better for the brand if you guys can separate, or it's impossible now with so many events?
Yeah, I mean, listen, we have a business to run. They have a business to run. These dates are not scheduled, to kind of go against each other on either side, I believe. They just happen to fall where they fall. Traditionally, we like to go on a Friday night instead of a Saturday night because, except for the West Coast, which is tough because no one can get to any venue here in the West Coast on a Friday night. So it makes it very, very tough. So we go on Saturdays on the West Coast. But traditionally, we like to go on Fridays just to stay kind of in our own date and let them do their thing. But you know what? Sometimes they have crossover, and sometimes they're on the same weekend, and that's a big fight. We have a big fight. I think that it's going to be a great weekend for MMA, fans because they get to watch, the great fights that we have on Friday, and then watch it on Saturday. So, what a great weekend.
Ryan Bader defending his title for the first time. Phil Davis returns. Ed Ruth both back at Penn State, but you're also crowning your first ever women's flyweight champion. And I'm wondering, with UFC bringing in how do you feel about the current state of women's MMA? In some people's eyes, you are a pioneer when it comes to it. You put, women's MMA on a stage when other promoters weren't, most notably the UFC. Do you feel like the talent depth is there? To share a 120, because the great thing I thought about Strikeforce was the one thing that you guys had that they didn't have were the women. So you had all the 135ers that you wanted, all the 145ers that you wanted. Now you have to share, and there's also Invicta in the mix as well. Do you feel like there's enough for at least 3 promotions to have, pretty deep rosters?
Yeah, and I don't even know their full rosters, but I'm happy with the roster that we have and that we're developing. And when you talk about the history of this, female fighting, we were the first ones to do it in California, and we were doing kickboxing 25 years ago, female fights that is. And when I think about the sale of Strikeforce to the UFC, basically, had UFC going into the female
right.
fight business. But if it was never sold, because we were already doing it for years. Gina Carano fought Elena Maxwell in 2006, and that was our inaugural launch into the female, division for MMA. But UFC was not in the female business until we sold them the company that had all these contracts to fight, and then Ronda became a big star, and then the rest is history. But that's really the history of the sport, of how it unfolded. And so, as far as the first to do it and support it and really embrace it was Strikeforce.
Yeah.
And now, there's enough women. Believe me, there's women all over the world. We get emails, every day, maybe 10, 15 emails from fighters, male and female coaches all over the world, with, sometimes the next best thing, the next greatest fighter.
Last question for you, Scott. One name that comes to mind, rising star, someone that maybe the casual fan hasn't heard of, you're very excited about. You have a lot of them right now. I mentioned Ed Ruth, AJ McKee fighting next month. Unfortunately, James Gallagher got injured, but hopefully he'll be back in mid-2018. Is there one name that hasn't quite reached that, that big time, that main event status, but you think could be the next big thing in Bellator? Who comes to mind right off the top of your head?
Wow, that is a good question. I mean, listen, everybody's heard of Pico and AJ McKee and Gallagher, but it's hard just to name one, right? But I think that besides the guys that already know, the 3 guys that I just mentioned, because they're kind of on their way already, I look at a guy like Terrell Fortune as a guy that has a lot of potential, and don't underestimate this guy. I think he's going to do a lot of great things.
Okay. All right. A name to look out for. Thank you very much for the time, Scott. We look forward to Bellator 186, November 3rd, Penn State, the return of Phil Davis, the return of Ed Ruth, and 2 title fights on the card. Ryan Bader defending his title against Linton Vassell, and of course, Alima Leigh McFarland against Emily Ducote for the women's flyweight title. First one in Bellator history. Looking forward to that. Thank you, Scott. Good to catch up, and I'm happy to hear that you're not sweating the Warriors. It will all work out. I'm pretty confident about that.
Hey, Ariel, and also don't forget Friday, November 17th, the fight in Tel Aviv. I want to see you there.
That's right. Yes, I will be there. I will see you there at the Wailing Wall. We'll do Sabbath there beforehand, then go over to the arena.
You got it. I'm there.
Okay. Thank you, Scott. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks,
Appreciate
buddy.
the time.
Okay.
Also on that card, by the way, Zach Freeman returns. You remember he shocked the world against Aaron Pico at MSG's fighting Saad Awad. And Ed Ruth, by the way, fighting Chris Dempsey, a big step up, I think, in competition. That is a solid card the night before UFC 217.